An anarchist view of work under capitalism focuses on how the system inherently exploits workers, alienates them from their labour, and reinforces oppressive hierarchies. From this perspective, work is not just a means of survival, but also of domination, where the capitalist class extracts value from workers in ways that serve to uphold inequality and coercion. At the core of the anarchist critique is exploitation through the extraction of surplus value. Capitalism functions by paying workers less than the value they produce, allowing owners or capitalists to accumulate profit. This exploitation is inherently unjust because it denies workers the full fruits of their labour. However, it's also the case that all forms of economic and social hierarchy, not just economic class, are coercive. In a capitalist society, work is not freely chosen. Workers are forced into employment due to economic necessity, giving capitalists powers to dictate the conditions, intensity, and nature of work. Therefore, under capitalism, freedom of choice is illusory. Survival requires submission to capitalist control. Work under capitalism also leads to alienation. Workers are separated from the products they create or the result of their labour, and the process of their labour and their own human potential. They often have little to no control over the nature of their work, what they produce, or how it is distributed. This alienation stifles human creativity and autonomy, turning workers into mere instruments of production. We anarchists argue that meaningful work should be self-directed, creative, and connected to communal and individual needs. But capitalism reduces it to a dehumanizing process driven by profit. The hierarchical nature of capitalist work environments further worsens this alienation. Most workplaces are structured like authoritarian systems, with bosses and managers exerting control over workers. This vertical power dynamic mirrors the state, another institution we anarchists would like to abolish. Just as political authority is viewed as illegitimate by us anarchists, so too is the authority of the boss or employer. In a truly free society, work would be organised through horizontal, non-hierarchical structures where decisions are made collectively but to suit and benefit individuals, and without coercion. Work under capitalism is not just a means of exploitation, but also a mechanism of social control. The need to work for wages reinforces capitalist values like selfishness and extreme personal responsibility, competition, and consumerism, which in turn weaken solidarity and collective action. This is evident in the way that work structures people's lives, often forcing them into rigid schedules, atomized roles, and commodified interactions. Additionally, capitalist work often produces goods and services that serve not to fulfill human needs, but to generate profit, fueling overproduction, environmental degradation, and unsustainable consumption. The necessity to constantly amass and expand capital creates a cycle of destruction, both of the environment and of human lives. That is a significant flaw of the capitalist work ethic. Work is not organised around human need, creativity, or sustainability, but around profit and control, leading to alienation from the world and from each other. Capitalist ideology often presents work as a necessary evil which is a condition for freedom. But we anarchists reject this dictamony, arguing that true freedom requires the abolition of capitalist work. The concept of so-called free labour under capitalism is a contradiction because workers are compelled by the necessity of survival in a market economy. In this system, we are forced into wage labour effectively renting out our time, bodies, and creativity to capitalists. Freedom cannot coexist with such coercion. A system that forces people to work under hierarchical and exploitative conditions is antithetical to genuine autonomy and freedom. In capitalist societies, work is often presented as the primary means to achieve upward social mobility. However, the promise of upward mobility is largely an illusion, designed to sustain compliance with the system. The vast majority of workers remain stuck in a cycle of precarity where they are vulnerable to unemployment, low wages, and unsafe working conditions, for example. This precarity is a feature, not a bug, of capitalism. It keeps workers in constant competition with each other and can dissuade resistance to the system. We anarchists envision a world where work is decommodified, meaning it is not performed for profit but for the satisfaction of human needs and desires. In a stateless, classless society, work would be organised cooperatively, with individuals deciding horizontally how to produce and distribute goods and services. This would require the abolition of private property and the dismantling of hierarchical institutions, including both the state and capitalist firms. In such a society, work would be self-managed and participatory, allowing individuals to have direct control over the conditions and processes of their labour. Instead of the division between managers and workers, decisions would be made through federations of communes, cooperatives, and mutual aid networks, for example. This form of organisation promotes mutual aid, solidarity, and the dissolution of power structures, ensuring that labour is directly tied to human need and communal and individual well-being rather than profit. In an anarchist society, the distinction between work and life would blur. Work would become a form of meaningful and creative activity that contributes to the collective good and to the individual, rather than an alienating exploitative necessity imposed by the market. It would also be voluntary, where individuals engage in productive activities that they find fulfilling, either on their own or as part of a community effort, rather than being forced into wage labour. Work under capitalism is fundamentally exploitative, alienating, and coercive. It forces us into hierarchical relationships, robs us of our autonomy, and commodifies our labour, all while perpetuating inequality and environmental destruction. The anarchist alternative envisions a world where work is no longer a tool of domination, but a site of liberation, where we have the freedom to engage in meaningful, self-directed labour that serves both individual and communal needs without the constraints of capitalist exploitation and hierarchy. Thank you for listening, everyone. All the best.